I'm talking about the plagiarism of the leftist historian Kevin Kruse at Princeton. And I was saying in the last segment how plagiarism is a form of thievery. It's a form of robbery. Why? Because you're stealing the ideas, the intellectual property, you could say, of somebody else. And just as we find with habitual thieves, plagiarists are normally repeat offenders. You know, sex abusers are normally repeat offenders. When you get in the habit, the intellectual laziness of saying, hey, listen, in my paper for school, I don't have to do the work. I'll look up somebody else's paper, I'll purloin a big part of it, stick it in my own paper, hope that nobody notices, and if you get away with it, you're going to keep doing it. So the question for Kruse is, how extensive is the plagiarism of this guy? What Phil Magnus does, this is Phil Magnus, the senior research fellow at the American Institute for Economic Research, is he sort of dives into Kruse's doctoral dissertation. And a doctoral dissertation is an absolutely critical document. Why? Because that's what gets you hired academically. And in fact, Princeton hired Kruse right out of graduate school based upon the doctoral dissertation. Kruse eventually took the doctoral dissertation and turned it into a book. And the book won some economic prizes and awards. So it is not an exaggeration to say that Kevin Kruse has built his career off of this dissertation, this doctoral dissertation. Another thing that's worth noting before we look at the actual texts is that Kevin Kruse himself has been very loud in denouncing plagiarism on the part of other people. It came out a few years ago that when this is actually when Milwaukee Sheriff David Clark was being looked at by Trump to bring him into the Trump administration, CNN got a copy of Clark's master's thesis. And CNN said that looking through the thesis, they said that he had done a bunch of footnotes in which he had identified the sources. He had actually cited the sources. But what Clark had not done is, quote, he failed to indicate with quotation marks that he's taking the words verbatim. And the point is that this is also plagiarism. Plagiarism isn't just that you didn't cite the source. That's one part of it. The other part of it is you take words verbatim. You're allowed to paraphrase something in your own words and then cite the source saying, yeah, I got it from here, or I got the idea from here. But on the other hand, if you take words verbatim and you don't say that you got those from another source, that's plagiarism as well. So CNN was pointing this out about Clark, and then here's Kevin Kruse weighing in repeatedly, saying things like, I'm a professor, quote, I'm a professor, this is textbook plagiarism. And then he basically said Clark, quote, plagiarized to get his academic degree. And he also pointed out that a student who did this would be expelled. Wow. So now the interesting question is, will all these stern admonitions coming from Kevin Kruse apply to him? Will Princeton take another look and go, hey, listen, we've got a plagiarist on our hands. How can he be telling students not to plagiarize? He's a serial plagiarist. And moreover, what about Cornell? Kevin Kruse got his PhD at Cornell. They're the ones that issued the doctoral dissertation. They might want to convene a committee and take another look to see if the dissertation needs to be sort of invalidated, or at least you put a big asterisk on it, which is to say, well, you know, at the time we gave the guy a degree. We're not going to take back his degree, but we do want to highlight that this is a corrupted or defective work in which the author has stolen the ideas of other people. So this is what we're dealing with, a very serious academic offense, and it's very interesting to see that Kruse's supporters have gone dead silent. You know, it's almost like a bunch of, this is like a bunch of followers who are following the Pied Piper, Kruse, and now they've read Phil Magnus's article, because it's been reported not just in Reason. A ton of people have circulated it, including, of course, me, and they can't defend it because it's too blatant, it's too obvious. And so basically, what these leftists are, they've gone dead silent. It's almost like our Pied Piper has jumped off the cliff, and now we're at the edge of the cliff. We better turn back, and better still, let's pretend like we were never cult followers of Kevin Kruse. All right, now let's look at the plagiarism itself, because it's just so obvious, it's so blatant, it's so unanswerable. Let me give you a couple of examples. Because we're dealing here with almost, identical passages from texts. Here is a book by Thomas Sugrue called The Origins of the Urban Crisis, published in 1996. By the way, Kruse's dissertation appears in 2000. And Sugrue goes, while Atlanta, like any other city, is unique in certain ways, I do not believe Atlanta is unique in regard to the impact of race. Here's Kruse. While Atlanta, like any other city, is unique in certain ways, I do not believe it is unique in regard to its struggles over race and rights. So Kruse changes the word, but otherwise he lifts the sentence verbatim. And when we come back, I'm going to go into this in more depth. You're going to see that basically what you have here is a guy who takes other people's ideas, claims that they're his own, and has used that to ascend the academic ladder. But now it looks like accountability is finally kicking in.